Part 31. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 301. Chapter 301. 3 Women Cultivate Mysterious Energy. Gao was having a much harder time, her body was trembling and her teeth were probably all gone, but she still tried her best to persevere. Yuan couldn't do anything except look at them like this, unlike others who could help. An hour later, they finally got through the most difficult period. The potency of the medicine was beginning to decrease. It would be better to consolidate the remaining potency without wasting the remaining potency. Finally, soak for another half an hour and call it a day. When they finished absorbing the power of the medicine, the 3 of them completely collapsed in the bathtub, or Yuan carried the 3 of them to the bed to rest and prepare for the second medicinal bath. At the second start, the 3 of them went in consciously with smiles on their faces. Wan'er, don't tell me, after taking a bath once, my mother's body is really relaxed and she looks much younger. Mrsu was particularly happy, as if she was back when she was a girl, with her brows dancing. Yes, madam, what do you think of the old slave? Ha ha ha, and Gao is young too. Mrsu laughed happily a few times, and even the silent Mrs. laughed with them. It is a woman's nature to love beauty. They just had once, and a little change made them so happy. Then after they practice cultivation, their appearance will not age, or even rejuvenate. Then don't they not eat or drink and just think about cultivation? At that time, she didn't know if it was really good. They have become cultivators, can they still be as happy as they are today? She can't control that much. There is no way to have it both ways. Just take it one step at a time. In this way, the 4 of them stayed in the space for a whole night and took 10 medicinal baths. Wow, Wan'er, is this me? After they came out of the space, they all changed their clothes and came out. Mrsu pointed at herself and asked. I can't believe that she, who is almost 50, looks 10 years younger after taking a medicinal bath. Yuan smiled and nodded. She did not expect that the 3 of them had changed so much after taking the medicinal bath. Mom has become more beautiful. I wonder if Dad will recognize you when he comes out. Mrsu's eyes instantly became a little dark, as if she was thinking about how she used to be. She said softly, how can it be possible? Your mother and I were also young. By the way, Wan'er, let's start practicing too. Mom is really impatient. Okay, Yuan nodded. She handed them 3 copies of the exercises that she had copied in her hand. In addition, she also wrote down in detail the problems she encountered during her own practice and how to better open up the acupoints. As long as they practice hard, they will be able to successfully open all the acupoints within 10 years. The 3 of them took the exercises, prepared food, and then went back to their houses to practice. Mrsu even asked Mu Yunshan to take his daughter-in-law to a town outside to give birth to the baby. It's a good name, I want to practice cultivation too. And Yuan thought that with Mu Yunshan taking care of her outside, she had to start refining her bones. She took a look at the people in seclusion in the valley. It was estimated that no one had left seclusion within a few years. Everyone had tasted the sweetness of cultivating mystical power, so naturally they worked harder. In the blink of an eye, 5 years passed. Yuan completed the bone training, and the bones in her body were trained piece by piece. The so-called bone refining is to use mysterious force to continuously temper each bone to make it harder and purer, without a trace of impurities. Of course, the advantage of this bone refining is that it can be practiced at different levels of cultivation. As long as you have time, you can do it anytime and anywhere. The further you practice, the more your body becomes a magic weapon. When fighting, if there is no magic weapon, your own body is the best magic weapon. You can throw yourself over and make sure the opponent doesn't even recognize him. In the next time, Yuan is preparing to refine the skin. As soon as the skin is refined, she can form an elixir. So Yuan continued without interruption, and it took another 5 years to finish refining the skin. She tried her strength and found it was more than twice as strong as before. This was pretty awesome. In the past, she could kill a first-level monster with one punch without using spiritual power, but now she can kill a second-level monster with one punch. She then used the spiritual weapon to directly cut any part of the skin on her body, only breaking a little bit of skin. Before, all her arms were cut off. At this level of strength, there should be no problem in overcoming the golden elixir tribulation. As for the internal organs, aren't they protected by skin on the outside? If they are injured, just swallow a healing pill. At this time, Yuan counted with her fingers. At this point, she had been in seclusion for 15 years, and she was 42 years old. Hey, I'm out of quarantine. Yuan stood up and stretched. She hadn't moved in the sitting position for 10 years. Fortunately, I am a monk. As long as I am not sitting down, I can practice sitting for as long as I want. Yuan opened the door that had not been opened for 10 years. A dazzling ray of sunlight hit her eyes. She subconsciously squinted her eyes and immediately fell into a familiar embrace. A voice filled with deep longing passed into her ears. She raised her head and looked at him. She hadn't seen him for 15 years, but he was still as breathtakingly handsome and had not changed at all. Monks have so many benefits, including boundless power, long life, and ageless appearance. So even the useless spiritual roots of the 5 spiritual roots must be sharpened and cultivated. Why, you haven't seen me for more than 10 years and you are fascinated by your husband. Mujukan pinched the tip of her pretty nose and looked at her smiling face. She still had a face as smooth as grease, eyes like stars, and her little mouth was pouted. Son, charming and charming. Hey, Yuan laughed naively. She hadn't seen her for more than 10 years, so there was no reason why she didn't want to. She was a very normal woman. Mujukan picked her up and closed the door with his backhand, and the two of them spent a few days and nights getting over the pain of missing each other. Have you met my mother? The first thing Yuan thought of when she woke up was Mrs. Muta and the 3 of them. Well, I see you. Thank you. Mujukan hugged her tightly and kissed her on the forehead. As a son, he ignored his mother. Fortunately, his wife made the matter go smoothly. In a few years or 10 years, I still don't know if my mother will be able to practice. Then how are they doing? She wanted to know very much. Mom and second aunt are fine. They still have a few acupuncture points that have not been opened, which is only a few months away. It's just that Aunt Gao is a little bit close, so don't feel bad. After all, she only started practicing at the age of 60, so she is in very good shape now. Her mentality is very good, and she deserves to be with you for the rest of her life. Yuan shook her head. I'm not sad. I thought of it at that time. Alas, in fact, Aunt Gao has no worries in her life. She has no intention of living for a long time. The longer she lives, the lonelier she will be. Well, it can be seen that she only followed you because she has deep feelings for you. We will treat her well in the future. Yuan nodded. She knew that in fact, Mr. Gao had always treated her as a daughter. She had let her serve by her side before because she knew that she had a kind-hearted nature, was sincere in her treatment of others, and had no petty thoughts. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 302. Chapter 302. Xiaoliu's marriage. Let's go out and take a look. Yuan got up and got dressed. Mujukan got it done in 3 strokes, 5 divided by 2, and went out with her. There were a lot of people in the valley. They were probably all accomplished practitioners. They were all trying their skills. When they saw the 2 of them coming out, they all gathered around. 4th sister. Master. Master. Everyone called her happily. Looking at the group of people laughing and joking in front of her, the beautiful men and women, what a pleasing scene, Yuan couldn't help but look at them a few more times. The original teenagers were now middle-aged in their 40s, but they looked at their 18 or 19-year-old young people, and Yuan sighed in her heart. The pig butcher's knife of the years indeed gives preferential treatment to those who cultivate immortality. If you don't cultivate immortality, you will still be facing the earth with your face and your back to the sky. I am afraid that you will have long hair and wrinkles on your face. It is estimated that a lot of people went to the trestle, walking stick. Fourth sister, what are you thinking about? Xiao Lu stepped forward and held Yuan, who was still in a trance, and asked. I'm thinking of you. By the way, Shidu, Wu Sheng, U11, you still have it. Yuan pointed at Xiao Liu's forehead and said, how is your Xianqi cultivation going? Master, look, the one who stood up was Yukai, who punched the ground hard. After a loud bang sound, a big crater was immediately made on the spot. Not bad. When everyone heard Yuan's praise, they all stepped forward to let Yuan inspect it. You have practiced to the point of skin refining. In the future, you can improve your cultivation. When the time is right, you can form elixirs. Don't worry, there are gold elixirs, but... She looked at the people present. They had heard that there was a golden elixir, and the smiles on their faces grew stronger. But after hearing this, everyone stopped smiling and looked at her, waiting for her next words. Master, you say, we listen, U11 said. Don't worry that I won't give it to you, but you can't give it to me for free. You must exchange it with me for something of equal value. Spiritual stones are also acceptable. A golden fused elixir is enough for 30,000 spiritual stones. Xiao Sier, are we the same? At this time, Yu Heiran's brothers also came, followed by Mr. Mu and others. It was Yu Haoshan who asked her. When U11 saw that they were coming, he immediately got out of the way, and he asked several people to fill the hole they had just made. Yuan saw that everyone had arrived. She waved her hand and moved the tables, chairs, and benches out so that everyone could sit down and talk. Standing to waste the solace of your feet. Since everyone was here, she simply made it clear at once. She does have the golden pill, but she doesn't want to give it to them for free, and she can't let them develop the habit of getting something for nothing. The higher the cultivation level is in the future, the more advanced things will be needed, but she does not have the ability to provide them. In addition, this continent is vast and it can be said that it is full of resources. Let them exchange for things of equal value. Even if you let them find resources on their own, it should be considered as an experience. Although there are resources everywhere, they are not so easy to get. Some places have owners, and some are in dangerous places. It is up to them to find ways to find them. So Yuan nodded to them all and conveyed her thoughts and ideas to them. This method works. We can't just sit here and look at the resources in Wanner's hand. It's time for us to go out for a walk. It was Mr. Mu who spoke first. Master, in fact, we are just waiting for you to come out of seclusion. This is what I want to tell you, Shitu continued. Since you went into seclusion, we have practiced the 4 arts of cultivating immortals, but the things we have refined are far from the best. We don't have enough money to redeem the gold-rich elixirs, so we just want to go out for a walk and come back to cash in the gold-rich elixirs. Oh. She didn't expect that Shitu and the others' ideological awareness had improved, and they were thinking ahead than she was. That's right. The more they lived, the stupider they became, and the more they lived, the greedier they became. She was also afraid that they would take her efforts for granted. She glanced at Mujukan beside her. This man had done a lot, right? Mujukan nodded to her lightly, without looking arrogant at all. Sure enough. Her man still feels sorry for her and does so many things behind her back. Okay, let's give it a 10-year period. After 10 years, your cultivation will be almost ready to form elixirs. If you need it, come back to me to cash it in. Yuan agreed without thinking. As long as they wanted to do anything and it didn't go against her will or her conscience, she would happily accept it. Master, let's go then, U11 took the lead and said with the 11 people. Yuan hissed twice in her heart, I dared them to really wait for her to agree, and they were not pretentious at all. Okay, Yuan nodded towards them. U11 after everyone cheered, the sword flew out of the valley. Yuan smiled bitterly, did they look like the birds flying out of the cage? Are you not in a hurry? She looked at the stone that had not yet been moved. Master, does my disciple have an uninvited request from you? Begging me, is it Xiaoliu's business? The two of them had been looking at each other for a long time. Yes, Master, I beg you to allow me to marry Xiaoliu. She too suddenly knelt down to her and kowtowed. You go to my eldest brother and uncle to discuss this matter. I don't have any objections. She stroked it hard, and the stone was pulled up with a strong force. She looked at Yu Heiran who was sitting firmly. Xiaoliu's marriage was decided by her eldest brother and uncle, so there was no need to ask for her consent. But just looking at the expressions of Yu Heiran and Fen Yuan, they must be in trouble. How can they marry Xiaoliu so easily? Fourth sister, don't you object? Xiaolu asked her with a pouted mouth. Girl, what do you have to object to? Yuan poked her forehead again. She was not in the mood to be pretentious as she wanted to have a good marriage. Xiaolu, we have no objections, Yu Heiran said after looking at it for a long time. Xiaolu pouted at him. Who said it in the first place? Your fourth sister is still in seclusion, and she too is her apprentice. We don't care. Snored. I have no objection at this time. Uncle, I don't have any objections. You two should hurry up and do things. The things are done and we have to leave. Don't you, old man? After Fen Yuan finished speaking, he asked Mr. Mu. Yes, you two are in love with each other, let's do it now so that we don't have to come back, Mr. Mu agreed. Yuan couldn't help but look at Fen Yuan a few more times. When did her relationship with Mr. Mu become so harmonious? Didn't everyone like to pinch them in the past? Xiaolu looked at the people present and finally realized that they were bullying Shishi. She stamped her feet, glanced at them fiercely, and ran away while pulling the stone that was still stunned. Ha ha ha. Leave a string of laughter for them. Mujukan held his forehead. Fortunately, he and Wanner had already been engaged, otherwise they would have been tortured by these people. Yuan, it doesn't matter. As long as two people really want to be together, it doesn't matter how long or short it takes. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 303. Chapter 303. The incident happened suddenly. After Xiaoliu's wedding day was decided, a simple wedding was held, and then the two of them left the next day. The next step is the two old men Mu and Fen Yuan. Yu Heiran's brothers, plus Fen Yunjing and Mu Eryi's two sons and daughters, together with 10 of them, also left the next day. The remaining Mu Yunchen family lives in Xiaoqingshan. Their son Xiao Daodu is almost 10 years old and cannot go out yet, so he works as a manager in Xiaoqingshan. Every season sowing and harvesting are done very quickly by hiring people in the town. Mu Yunchen can do all the other care by himself. Uncle Mu, Eryi Mu, their wives, and Mrs. Gao are all left. Uncle Mu did not fly alone this time and took Mrs. Su with him, and the two of them went to have a good time. Second Master Mu naturally took his wife and left. Gao didn't want to go anywhere alone. Although she hadn't opened many acupuncture points over the years, although she was now in her 70s and had white hair, she was in good spirits. She insisted on staying and looking at the valley. The little snake is in seclusion in the mountains. When he comes out of seclusion this time, it is estimated that he can recover to the 5th level. In the end, only Yuan and the others were left. Wan, should we go out and have a look too? Yuan shook her head. Her danchan was saturated with spiritual energy and she was ready to form elixirs. After forming the elixir, it is not too late to go out for a walk. How about you accompany me to the deep mountains to see how the little snake is doing? In addition, she also wanted to go deeper into the place to find some 3rd level elixirs. I said I don't care about them, but I can also let them exchange for something of equal value. In 10 or 20 years, some of them will form elixirs, and 3rd level elixirs will be indispensable. Move it into the space and plant it now, and then it can be used in large quantities. If you can find a 4th level or 5th level elixir, that would be even better. Okay, just wait a minute and I'll tell Aunt Gao. Mujukan responded and went to find Mrs. Gao. They don't know how long it will take them to go there, and the provincial aunt is waiting for them to come back. The two of them soon reached the mountains. After seeing that the little snake was still in seclusion, they flew towards the depths of the mountains without disturbing them. They fly over places they have been before. Wan, is it almost done here? When they flew far away, Mujukan said, no matter how deep you go, no one knows if there is any danger inside. What's more, they are 1,000 miles away from the valley, which is quite deep. No, I think there must be high-level medicines in it. We have to dig up some high-level medicines when we come here. Your future Yingying pills must first find good elixirs and plant them. How could Yuan not know that they had flown so far away? The spiritual energy in her consciousness is a bit stronger, and there must be high-level elixirs. As for those mysterious beasts, she still has ways to deal with them. Isn't there a high-level thug beside you? Mujukan felt warm in his heart after hearing this. What could he say? His wife had already thought of him having a baby, so there was no way he could disagree. Although he has been learning to refine weapons by himself in recent years, he has also taken a look at elixir refining and knows that the elixir required for the Yingying Den cannot be found in ordinary places. The only way to find the elixir is to plant it in advance to prepare for emergencies. But when flying, he paid more attention to their feet, safety first. The two flew more than 500 miles away again, and Mujukan strongly requested not to go any deeper. So the two of them slowly descended into the airtight forest below. Mujukan, it's really eerie in here. It was bright and sunny outside, but it was extremely gloomy in the forest. Yuan inhaled the spiritual energy, which was very rich. The plants in the forest are not only extremely dense, but also full of vitality. The only thing is that it is gloomy and terrible. It seems like there is a ferocious beast hiding here. There isn't even a mysterious beast within 100 miles. However, the two of them did not find anything extraordinary in their consciousness. Well, Wanur, let's be careful. You quickly dig up the elixir and I'll be on guard, Mujukan said. Good. Yuan summoned a spiritual and started digging for the elixir on the ground. It's really weird here. But there are also many elixirs. Yuan quickly dug out the elixir, while Mujukan stood guard next to her. A few days passed like this, and nothing happened. The two of them gradually relaxed their vigilance. They knew that some places could indeed form naturally, but they were rare. Yuan dug a lot today and felt a little hungry. She hadn't felt hungry for a long time. Her consciousness swept across a cave, so she said, Mujukan, let's go to that cave to have a rest, just in time to grill some meat. There is more monster meat in her dimension than elixir. She did not let the dimension swallow up the 4th level monster meat that she threw into her storage bag. Good. Mujukan also saw it with his spiritual consciousness. The two of them quickly entered the cave, cleared an open space, took out some barbecue utensils, and began to barbecue. Soon, Mujukan had baked a plate. Yuan picked it up and started eating. Well, people still have to eat after eating this meat, the whole person feels comfortable. Yuan finished a plate, wiped her mouth and said, "Eat more when you're hungry. It's probably because you haven't stopped eating in the past few days and the excessive consumption of spiritual power has made you feel hungry." He didn't feel it at all. Yuan nodded and continued to eat the roast pork on the plate. Suddenly, countless thin threads flew out from the hole and instantly entangled the plate in Yuan's hand. "Walk!" Mujukan shouted and dodged the black silk. The countless black threads were wrapped around the two of them. In half a breath, the two of them turned into two black cocoons and disappeared from the entrance of the cave in the blink of an eye. Everything happened so suddenly. Yuan's powerful spiritual consciousness didn't find it, which means something. It means that the people in Hisi have stronger spiritual consciousness than them. The two of them were pulled deep into the cave, straight into the ground, like they were on a roller coaster. Bang bang. Two sounds of falling to the ground. The two of them were thrown into a bottomless hole. Ha 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 ha, God help me, there are monks here. At this time, a sharp and aggressive female voice echoed in the cave. Yuan and Yuan were knocked unconscious long ago, with stars in their eyes, and they were tightly with black silk threads. Can't move even if I want to. Who are you? Why did you kidnap us here? Unable to move, Yuan could only ask in a daze. Tisk tisk tisk. Suddenly, something like spiritual energy floated in front of Yuan, and slowly appeared like a woman, dressed in white, but her face was blurry. She walked around Yuan a few times, clicked her tongue a few more times, and looked at her with disdain. At such an old age, I am still a young Zuji, but fortunately I am a woman, good-looking, and worthy of me. Yuan was wary of her when she was looking at her. Hearing this, he was afraid that he wanted to take away her body. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 304. Chapter 304 Seizing the Body. Mujukan couldn't move or speak. Only the raging anger in his eyes showed that he was on the verge of anger. It's a pity that even a golden elixir monk has no use for that divine soul. Be anxious. While Yuan was stunned, the soul completed the test and was very satisfied. This female cultivator is a bit weak in cultivation, but her soul is very strong. Tisk, 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 your little weakling's consciousness has already transformed into a spirit in the foundation building stage. Yes, that's right, the little weakling has a great chance. I'm still worried that your soul can't bear my soul. Ha ha ha, God is really blessing me. Shenhun laughed happily. Yuan sneered in her heart, she would know who God was favoring later. If you want to take her away, the red-clothed soul that took her away has long since dissipated between heaven and earth. Yuan looked at Mujukan, who was so furious that his face was twisted, and gave him a reassuring look. Then she waited with great concentration, waiting for the soul to enter her sea of consciousness. Mujukan knew that no one else could take her body away from her, but wouldn't there be consequences for both sides, so he was worried too. The spirit didn't let Yuan wait long. Seeing that she was on full alert, she didn't care at all, and there was no point in being on guard. How powerful her soul is! No matter how weak the soul of the Mahayana stage is now, her soul of the transformation stage cannot compete with it. With a sound, the soul evaluated itself and immediately rushed into Yuan's sea of consciousness. What we have been waiting for is this moment. No matter how powerful the soul is, its defense against foreign objects is the weakest at the moment it rushes into the sea of consciousness, because the soul is in a rushing state at that time and needs to protect itself. So just when Qianjun was about to shoot, Yuan's entire body entered the red earth of space. No one can enter here except her. Sure enough, when she was in the red earth, her soul was left behind. Huh! The white-clothed soul saw a place change in the blink of an eye. Just when she was confused, she was suddenly bitten by a big bite. Ah! After the white-clothed soul screamed, Her body became smaller. What place is this? Why isn't it in that little weakling sea of consciousness? She clearly entered her sea of consciousness. How could she change places? She endured the pain in her body, ran away with all her strength, and looked around, which shocked her. Life space. It was over. The spirit in white swayed in the air for a few days and almost fell to the ground. Her body was originally in a state of trance, and the pain she felt was 10 times greater than the physical pain. Such a big blow almost caused her to lose her trance. This is the life space of that little weakling. Even if she is a soul in the Mahayana stage, she is no better than a fart in front of this kind of space artifact. What should she do? Begging for mercy from that weakling? As long as the little weakling doesn't kill her, he will survive. But is it possible to beg her? To be honest, even if the soul explodes here, it will not be able to damage the space artifact. At most, it will destroy the elixir outside. But the barrier in the middle cannot be destroyed. She knew that the little weakling was in that barrier, but she couldn't break the barrier. It was so broken that it could eat the soul of that weakling. She is the owner of this space and the owner of that body. It's a pity that such a good opportunity does not belong to her. Shenhun in Bai couldn't bear to think of this. Suddenly, her soul body expanded, and all the spiritual energy in the space surged towards her. Even if she doesn't get it, she has no way to get out, and then she'll blow up. There is no way you can take advantage of that little weakling. She has only suffered loss at the hands of 2 people in her life. One was the man who was cut to death by 1,000 cuts. She treated him like that, but he stabbed her in the back. Otherwise, how could she have fallen to this level and let such a weakling be destroyed? Ha ha ha. The spirit in white laughed wildly, with endless sadness and sarcasm in the laughter. Not good. Yuan had just finished devouring a large mouthful of soul in the red earth, and saw that the soul in white was going crazy and wanted to self-destruct. How could this possibly make her blow herself up? Wouldn't it be delicious for her to take the big tonic pills delivered to her door? Why did you blow yourself up for her? Yuan's consciousness moved, and the spirit appeared behind the white-clothed spirit again, opening her mouth wide and biting it down. Ah, poof. With that bite, the swollen soul suddenly felt like a deflated rubber ball. Yuan immediately swallowed it, took another bite and returned to the red earth. Gilug, Yuan swallowed it hard. At this time, the 2 of soul turned into pure soul power and spiritual power. Same as before, the spiritual power rushes to the Danshan, and the soul power rushes to the sea of consciousness. The already saturated Danshan is now unbearably swollen and painful. Is this about to break through? Yuan was so anxious that she couldn't go out, and even less so if she didn't go out. She took a look at the Shenhun dumpling that she had taken 3 big bites of. Now there was only 1 dumpling left, and it was no longer a human-shaped dumpling. Floating in the air unconsciously. Hold it, swallow it, otherwise what will happen to her if it falls on the ground? So Yuan's consciousness moved again, her soul appeared again, and then she took another bite. Another bite. Take another bite. I bite, bite, bite. Hiccup. Yuan took the last bite and returned to the original body, burping heavily. Oops, oops, my body is going to explode. There was too much spiritual power in her Danshan, and it was already going crazy. If she didn't channel it, her whole body would explode. I was irritating myself, and Yuan was furious. What is the state of this white-clothed soul? The spiritual power and soul power are so strong. Her consciousness suddenly appeared in the cave. She didn't have time to say anything to Mujukin, so she immediately took him into the space. Then he sat cross-legged in the cave, exhaled heavily, and worked hard to operate the exercises. Let the Danshan be violently transported to the whole body to temper the body and widen the meridians. Like this, after a week, Yuan's whole body was filled with black and greasy stuff. 2 weeks and 3 weeks have passed, and the spiritual power in the body has decreased a little, but it is far from enough to calm down the violent spiritual power. In this way, she continued to let spiritual power wash through her meridians. In this way, the meridians that were originally as thick as a grain of rice were widened to half the thickness of her little finger. She took the opportunity to move the 1008 acupoints that were opened several times, so that the meridians for practicing Suanli were widened and thickened at the same time. At the same time, part of the spiritual power hits the barrier of the golden core stage. Once, twice, 3 times. Mujukan, who entered the space at this time, looked at the female corpse in white clothes in front of him and took off a ring from her finger. Yes, this female corpse in white is the true body of the spirit in white. When Yuan bid her for the 3rd time, the black threads on Mujukan's body disappeared and he regained his freedom. The first thing he did was to look around here, but he saw this body in the corner of the cave. He put it away and continued to look. At this moment, Yuan came in from the space. His consciousness scanned the body of the woman in white several times, but there was nothing else. He threw it to the red earth with a wave of his hand. For a moment, only a white cassock remained. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 305. Chapter 305 The Golden Elixir Tribulation. Mujukan picked it up with his flying sword and put it away, then sat in the space and waited. He knew that Wanner had swallowed the soul and should be going through the tribulation now. He couldn't help at this time, and helping would be of no help. It would only double the severity of the thunder disaster, so he had no choice but to wait. The spiritual power in Yuan's danshan outside was finally reduced by half, and it was no longer so violent. At this time, there was only a bang sound in her danshan, and the golden elixir barrier was broken. It was like a floodgate was opened, and spiritual power continued to pour in. At this time, the pressure in her danshan was relieved. The spiritual liquid in danshan also began to rotate into golden elixir. At this moment, the top of the cave was covered with dark clouds, and thunder and lightning as thick as an arm pierced the sky, cracking and rumbling towards the cave. Under the cave, Yuan sat at the bottom of the cave. She ignored the landslide and landslide outside. She still sat firmly at the bottom of the cave, running her skills to let the golden elixir take shape. Crack, boom, boom, the thunderbolt as thick as an arm passed through the thick soil, finally found its owner, and struck Yuan hard. Seems to be punishing her for hiding at the bottom of such a deep cave, making it easier to find. Well, it hurts. Yuan groaned. The lightning struck his body, numbing and hurting him, and his body couldn't help but tremble. She was shivering in pain, but she had to hold it back. This was the first treatment. Boom, click, boom, boom. The second tribulation thunder hit her body accurately. At the same time, the cave was pierced by the tribulation thunder. The collapsed sand and rocks rolled down, and many of them hit her body. Ah! Damn it, it hurts. Yuan couldn't help but scream. 2 attacks fell on her at the same time, making her so painful that she doubted her life. Institutions. In an instant, the power of thunder and lightning swam across her body, destroying her body wantonly. Yuan gritted her teeth. The sand and stones hitting her body only caused pain in her skin and flesh, but she could not describe the pain caused by the power of thunder and lightning. Seeing that the power of thunder and lightning, which was even more violent than the spiritual power just now, was about to destroy all the meridians in her body, how could that be done? How could she allow it? If you can't withstand the first 2, then you can't bear the next 7 tribulation thunders, and you won't be chopped into ashes. The power of thunder and lightning cannot be discharged, so it has to be absorbed and digested by oneself. What she was thinking was that black power and spiritual power could be used to forge bones, and the power of thunder and lightning was also power. Let's give it a try. Anyway, it's a dead horse being treated as a living horse. You can't just watch it die by lightning, right? Enter the space to hide. You can hide for a while, but you can't hide for a lifetime unless she stops forming elixirs. Yuan did as she said, started practicing the exercises, and began to temper the bones with a trace of the power of thunder and lightning. Hiss. It hurts. Bear with me. When the power of thunder and lightning entered the bones, the pain was like countless steel needles piercing the bones, and he almost fainted from the pain. Gongfa's Wan, Yuan roared in her heart. The bone tempering technique starts to turn like a cycle with the power of thunder and lightning. Oh my god, the excruciating pain has just begun to lessen. She also succeeded. Sure enough, there is no perfect path. It was successful, and the third calamity thunder was about to come again. In fact, after saying so much, only 300 breaths had passed. Sure enough, the third calamity thunder was brewing and struck at Yuan with overwhelming power. Yuan did not hesitate to use the power of thunder and lightning to temper the bones and at the same time solidify the golden elixir formed in the body. Gradually, the bones all over her body became as white as jade, without any impurities, and there were faint traces of thunder and lightning on them. Yuan breathed out turbid air, and she could see the power of thunder and lightning in the turbid air. It roared twice in the air before dissipating. Sure enough, using the power of thunder and lightning to temper bones can kill two birds with one stone. She is not afraid of the thunder now. She will catch it when it comes. At this time, the golden elixir in the body gradually turned golden. Yuan urged the golden elixir to rotate continuously, absorbing the remaining spiritual power in the danshan and the spiritual power outside. In this way, half a day later, the 9 tribulation thunders finally finished striking. Her golden elixir finally stopped spinning and floated in her danshan. Yuan exhaled again. The consciousness returned to space as soon as it moved. In the space, Mujukan saw a black lump of Yuan suddenly appeared. He felt distressed and amused at the same time. He quickly cast a few dust removal spells, and then waved her hair, which had been blown into a bird's nest, to reveal a round head. Then he stuffed a healing elixir into her mouth, and then stood by her side to consolidate her cultivation. Mujukan looked at her current state and twitched at the corner of his mouth. Why did she survive this thunderstorm so miserably? No matter how embarrassed he was at the beginning, he still had a bald head, and the clothes were not enough to cover his body. Yuan was concentrating on consolidating her skills at the golden core stage at this time. As soon as she advanced, a road map for the golden core stage's skills popped up in her sea of consciousness. The path map of this golden elixir phase is not much different from the foundation phase, but when it is really running, it takes at least 1 stick of incense to run for 1 week, which is half the time of the foundation phase. This extra half of time is mainly due to the fact that the meridians are half as wide, and there are a few more meridians for performing exercises, so that the body can accommodate more spiritual energy. The same goes for the danshan. In the past, the danshan was full of spiritual fluid, but now it is a golden elixir the size of a table tennis ball. This kind of golden elixir is the best golden elixir recorded in ancient books. Golden elixirs are also graded. Low-grade elixirs are about the size of a pea and are round and silver in color. This kind of golden elixir stores less spiritual power, and it is incomparable to the middle-grade golden elixir in terms of fighting skills and breakthroughs and promotions. With 100% of your strength, someone else can kill you with 50% of their strength. At the time of promotion, low-grade golden elixirs have many small impurities and cannot carry much spiritual power, and can easily cause the golden elixir to break. But if a top-grade golden elixir wants to advance, it must have a large amount of spiritual energy, so most monks like high-grade golden elixirs. But in this continent, Yuan has nothing to worry about, not to mention she still has space. After a month in the space, Yuan suddenly opened her eyes, and there seemed to be a flash of thunder and lightning in her cold eyes. "Are you ready?" Mujukan saw her opening her eyes in his consciousness and came over immediately. Yuan blinked, then returned to normal, and she nodded. With a sudden movement of consciousness, I returned to the house, changed my clothes, and combed my hair. In 1 month, her hair has grown long. Congratulations to my wife for becoming a Jindan real person, please accept it with a smile. Mujukan served a pot of monster porridge that he cooked with his own hands. Yuan took it and put it on the table, then sat on the stool without saying a word, seeming to be thinking about something. "What's wrong?" "Waner, you," Mujukan was a little stunned. "What is his wife? Taken away? What are you thinking about?" "I got distracted while sorting out that woman's memories." Yuan glared at him. "Oh." He suddenly remembered that the spirit had left a storage ring, so he took it out of his pocket and placed it on the table. "Let Waner see other women's things." "Waner, look at this, it's on the finger of the female corpse." "Okay, we'll see later, I'll eat first, where's yours?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 306. Chapter 306, Huang Chuying. Mujukan shook his head. "I have no appetite." "Well, after eating, I have to tidy up." "You can practice by yourself. I'll call you when you go out." Yuan drove people away directly. Having just been promoted to Golden Elixir, she only consolidated her cultivation and didn't look at anything else. Mujukan resigned himself to his fate and left. Yuan ate the porridge in 3 gulps. She looked at the ring and threw it on the table. Then she sat cross-legged on the bed and began to look inside. The contents of the storage ring cannot escape. Now she is eager to see how the soul is doing now. There is also that woman's memory, which is a mess and needs to be sorted out to see if there is anything worthy of her use. So Yuan's consciousness sank into the sea of consciousness. Her sea of consciousness was originally wide, but now it is even wider, twice as big as before. If it was a small lake before, it is now a big lake. The soul is much fatter and more solid than before. The whole soul is a miniature version of her, just a little fat man, sitting in the middle of the sea of consciousness. She realized a thought, and her soul closed her eyes, thinking about the memory of the woman in white. Sure enough, those memories flashed through her mind one by one like a movie. Yuan read it carefully several times, then reorganized it and figured out the ins and outs. She was still a little surprised by the identity of this woman. It turned out that this woman was Huang Chuying, and she was born into a first-class cultivating family in the spiritual world. She is the daughter of the head of the family. She has a distinguished status, not to mention her excellent aptitude for cultivating immortals. She has the dual spiritual roots of fire and wood that everyone envies, or the kind where both spiritual roots are balanced, which is equivalent to the aptitude of the heavenly spiritual root. The speed of cultivation is quite fast. Later, when she was 8 years old, she was accepted as a close disciple by the peak master of Yuking sect Shendan Peak, the largest super sect in the spiritual world. After that, she practiced alchemy on the Shendan Peak and learned alchemy from her master. Her life was quiet and smooth. In the blink of an eye, she spent 20 years quietly on the Shendan Peak. Thinking that she was about to form an elixir, the retreat time was a bit long, and she also missed her parents, so she got permission from her master to go back to her family to visit her relatives. It was on her way back that her fate changed. She met a man named Chiao Beilu who was being hunted, and she kindly rescued him. This time Chiao Beilu saw that she, a foundation-building monk, was using high-level elixirs, wearing high-level robes, and even flying boats were at the level of magic weapons. He immediately became interested and refused to leave Huang Qiuying on the grounds of repaying her. Huang Qiuying had no choice but to let her follow. She was also inexperienced in the world. She had been held in the palm of her parents' hands since she was a child. After entering the sect, she had been learning alchemy from the master and had very little experience outside the sect. Even when she went out, she would follow the brothers and sisters in the sect, and all of them would take care of her more for the sake of her master. How could she understand the sinister hearts of people in the world of immortality? Xiao Beilu was attracted by her temperament, so he kept relying on her for nothing. In addition, he was very handsome and always pretended to be a gentle gentleman. At this time, Huang Qiuying was moved by Fan Xian. After meeting her parents, she took Xiao Beilu back to the sect and arranged for him to work as a casual cultivator in Zhongmenfang City. At that time, his age exceeded the sect's acceptance criteria, and because he had 4 spiritual roots, he had no hope of entering the sect. So Huang Qiuying ran to Fangxi every day when she was free to deliver pills and spiritual stones for him to practice. The relationship between the two heated up rapidly. Not long after, she finally fell into the gentle countryside of Xiao Beilu. Still unable to extricate herself, she planned to tell her master and parents that they would become a Taoist couple. A few years later, their matter finally came to her master and parents. Her master just sighed and told her to be cautious. Her parents disagreed and planned to get Xiao Beilu away, and even sent people to rob and kill him. This Xiao Beilu seems to be an invincible Xiaoqiang, allowing him to escape from death every time, and he also manages to meet Huang Qiuying. This time Huang Qiuying completely fell out with her parents and ran away with him regardless. Even the sect has not returned. In this way, they have lived until the Union period. If it were not for an accident, they would have lived together peacefully. It turns out that Xiao Beilu had 2 women outside, each of whom had a son and a daughter. This time Huang Qiuying was completely dumbfounded. She had lived with Xiao Beilu for almost 5,000 years and still could not give birth to a child. She once thought that there was something wrong with her, and she was even more kind to him. It turned out that Xiao Beilu had already done something to her and gave her the Juezi pill. When she questioned him, he remained silent and then tried to coax her with his sharp tongue. Perhaps Huang Qiuying is several thousand years old and has matured a lot thinking of her abandoning her family for him. In addition to practicing these years, she has also made alchemy for him to practice, but she doesn't want to use her in exchange. This time, I didn't listen to his sweet words and turned around to leave. She scolded herself countless times in her mind for being so stupid, for believing lies that were full of loopholes again and again. Thinking of her poor parents and the master who loved her. At this moment, Huang Qiuying seemed to have changed into a different person, and she had completely matured overnight. So she returned to her sect and her family, but her family was still the same, but her parents were gone. She regretted that she sat in front of her parents' graves for a whole year without moving. After that, she returned to the sect to practice in seclusion, cultivate to the Mahayana stage as soon as possible, and then ascend to the fairy world to find her master. Hard work paid off. After 100 years of seclusion, she finally advanced to the Mahayana stage and became the master of Shendan Peak. At this time, Xiao Beilu came to see her again, demanding to see her, saying that he would never come to see her again after seeing her. Actually, she didn't expect that this time it was the man who set up the Zuxian formation for her and sent her to hell. There are only women he doesn't want, so how can any woman not want him? Without her support these years, Xiao Beilu's cultivation has not improved at all, and he still has 2 families to support. So if Huang Qiuying can still provide for him this time as before, he will keep her. If not, then kill her and take her things, which will be enough for them to practice for a long time. Huang Qiuying thought that the last meeting would be the last time, and the two met in the mountain range where they first met. After meeting, neither of them achieved the desired effect, so Qiao Beilu activated the formation to trap her. Huang Qiuying blew up countless magic weapons and spiritual treasures before blowing up the Zuxian formation. This place was also blown up so hard that a crack actually exploded there, swallowing her up instantly. When she wakes up, she will be on this continent. What's annoying is that her body was seriously injured in the space crack, and it has reached the point of being irreparable. So she used her last bit of spiritual power to enter the cave, abandoned her inner body, and let her soul recover in the cave. As soon as she recovered, she met Yuan and the others, who eventually became her great support. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 307. Chapter 307 Marrow Cleansing Pill. After Yuan lit a candle for Huang Qiuying, she felt heartbroken for the magical treasures she had self-destruct. It took a while before she took the time to understand her alchemy skills. These things are treasures. She has never learned alchemy in a systematic way. With such a ready-made master teaching her, as long as she understands it, her alchemy will definitely make a qualitative leap. Yuan began to learn the basics of alchemy when Huang Qiuying entered the section. During that time, her master happened to teach her step by step. She is equivalent to having two people teaching her at the same time. Huang Qiuying studied it for 20 years, and Yuan also realized it in space for 5 years. What she admired was not Huang Qiuying's alchemy skills, but her master. In her master's view, a real alchemist can make the best elixir out of a hodgepodge, rather than just following a script. Have a spirit of innovation and improvement. The elixirs created by predecessors are not necessarily perfect. They have tried them out thousands of times. There will definitely be shortcomings, and as future generations, we must improve them on their basis. This is the real alchemist. Alchemy is not just about making pills. Yuan was thoughtful. She naturally compared those prescriptions and found that they were indeed different. It could be said that none of Master Huang Qiuying's prescriptions had not been improved. She can also do this in the future and refine even better elixirs. Having Master Huang Qiuying teach her like this, her alchemy skills have indeed improved rapidly. Even if she leaves the sect, her alchemy skills will still be top-notch, and she will be able to raise so many pillar worms for thousands of years to come. Yuan lamented that even geniuses need guidance from famous teachers. She has talent, but she only figures it out by herself, and her alchemy skills are incomparable to Huang Qiuying's. Yuan sighed for a long time. It was a pity that such an alchemy genius died like this. She concocted a now lost third-level marrow cleansing elixir. As the name suggests, this elixir cleanses the meridians and extends the marrow. It can wash away impurities accumulated in the body over time, allowing the body to absorb spiritual energy very quickly and speed up cultivation. Has no amplitude effect yet. At that time, Qiao Beilu only managed to catch up with Huang Qiuying by taking this elixir for a long time. Otherwise, he would not be able to catch up even if he flattered her. The use of marrow cleansing pills is very common, but what drives countless alchemists crazy is that there are several elixirs in them that are not compatible with each other at all, or even conflict with each other. It is necessary to have strong spiritual consciousness to control it and remove the incompatible parts of the elixir, leaving only those that can be fused. It is estimated that this difficult step has caused many alchemists to give up, and over time the alchemy recipes have simply disappeared. One of the steps in alchemy is to remove impurities from the elixir. That is easy to do, but it is a terrible thing to forcefully remove the part of the medicine that is incompatible with it. This process not only requires powerful spiritual consciousness to control the separation process, but also requires great care and patience. Yuan also wants to try it. She has Huang Qiuying's skillful refining techniques, so it is not difficult to make the marrow cleansing pill. Just in time for everyone to wash their marrow. Yuan prepared the elixir and used the elixir fire. She tried it several times. When she could control the elixir fire at the golden elixir stage well, she threw all the elixirs in, trying to see if the hodgepodge could make an elixir. Come. Huang Chuiying's alchemy skills are very high. With the true instructions from her master, she can make a hodgepodge without using a stick of incense. Even though Yuan had pictures and real images in her memory, she still failed dozens of times before succeeding. She looked at the marrow cleansing pill in her hand, which was full of spiritual energy. She smiled so happily and brightly that she hadn't smiled like this in a long time. Yuan left the alchemy room, and with a sudden movement of consciousness, she came outside Mujukin's practice room and knocked on the door. The door opened, and Mujukin looked at Yuan, who was in a very good mood. What good thing is Waner doing? Yes, yes, come in quickly, Yuan said, pulling him into the practice room. Mujukin followed her in and sat down. Seeing how happy she was, he wanted to hear if she had any good things to share with him. Come on, open your mouth. Yuan poured out a marrow cleansing pill and asked Mujukin to open his mouth. Mujukin cooperated obediently and swallowed the marrow cleansing pill in one gulp. Transformation and refining. Mujukin did as he was told, but for a while, his whole body was gnawing like ants. Don't stop, this is the marrow cleansing pill, which is hard to find. Yuan's voice sounded at the right time. Mujukin, who was in luck, thought to himself that it was no wonder, when had Waner ever harmed him. So he endured the pain and performed his exercises. After a while, something black and dirty gradually appeared on his body. Ugh, it stinks so much. As soon as Yuan smelled it, she immediately rushed out of the practice room. Holy shit, Mujukin, how stinky you are. Yuan, a veritable stinky man, hurriedly ran back to her training room with a few oohs and ahs. Mujukin's face was dark at this time. He really stank, he could smell it himself. No wonder Waner is so excited. The effect of this marrow cleansing pill is really worthy of its name. Just one pill caused his body to expel so much smelly stuff. Yuan returned to the training room, and she also swallowed one and began to absorb and refine it. As soon as the elixir fell into my stomach, my whole body felt like ants biting me, with heartbreaking pain. But in her consciousness, there was something black coming out of her bone marrow and onto her skin. She knew about Yuan's physical condition. She used Qian-Qi to temper her body with the power of thunder and lightning, and there were no more impurities in her body. But what do these black things in the bone marrow, internal organs, acupoints, and sea of consciousness mean? There are so many. Yeah, Yuan was extremely proud in her heart. The marrow cleansing pill she refined was so awesome that it could remove the most stubborn impurities from the body. Ha 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 ha, she, Yuan, is indeed a genius in alchemy. One day later, Yuan smelled the unpleasant smell on her body, which was so sour that she doubted her life. Am I that dirty? Ha 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 ha, where are the briquettes coming from? Mujukin stood outside the door and laughed so hard that he couldn't stand upright. How could she be so embarrassed that he could smile so charmingly despite being always so cold? Yuan curled her lips. Let's talk to each other. She quickly performed a few cleaning techniques, and then got up and came out feeling refreshed. Mujukin, who had always been so glamorous and like a god, was still looking at her and smiling happily. Yuan twitched her mouth. Is it that exaggerated? Well, Waner is even more beautiful. It took a long time for Mujukin to stop laughing. He would never forget the sight of Waner's whole body covered in black, leaving only her two eyes blinking in a daze. At this time, Waner's body has fewer impurities, giving people an ethereal beauty, just like the morning aura, fresh and pure. Such Waner becomes more and more fairy-like. Zhen is the nine-heaven fairy descending to the mortal world. He went up and hugged her, just like that. Hey, Mujukin, let's see what treasures are in that storage ring. After a long time, Yuan raised her head and said. Okay, Mujukin let go of her and carried her into the wooden house. The two got to know each other deeply before pouring out the contents of the ring. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 308. Chapter 308 Counting the Treasures. There are many high-level things, and they are all real treasures. After all, they are the collection of Mahayana monks. What's more, when she was promoted to the Mahayana stage, she held a celebration and collected many treasures. It just caused her to blow up a lot of magic weapons. Thinking of this, Yuan's heart ached again. It took the two of them a few days to clear it all. There were countless elixirs alone, and they were all high-level elixirs, but so many elixirs could not save her body. There were quite a few high-level formation discs, and Mujukan took one of each. The jade box contained high-level magic weapons, spiritual treasures, and even Taoist and fairy weapons. They had no use for these high-level magic weapons, so they put them all away. Wanner, look at the elixir in the jade box first. Let's plant what needs to be planted. There are also elixir seeds here. Mujukan took a jade box and opened it. It was filled with elixir seeds. Real. Yuan immediately went over and took a look. It was indeed a box of elixir seeds. She felt happy. Huang Chuiying was so thoughtful and gave her whatever she wanted. Is this the reincarnation of the Guanyin who gives money? Mujukan looked at her beaming with joy, and his mood also became happy. Mujukan, let's plant them first. After the cleaning is completed, the elixir seeds collected by Mahayana monks cannot be low level. They are all high level and the best. What they lack is high level elixir. Mujukan nodded and asked her to put the jade box away first and then clean it up. Huang Chuiying collected a lot of jade slips, all collected for Chiao Beilu, and they had all kinds of things. This Chiao Beilu was probably acquired for his sons and daughters. He is a person who relies on his mouth to make a living. It is not as easy as cultivating his mouth to cultivate immortality and various arts. Wanner, here is a Lingbao flying sword with both fire and wood elements. Take a look, this is very suitable for you to use. Mujukan gave her a red and blue flying sword. Yuan took it and looked at it carefully. It was really suitable for her use. She nodded and put it away. Mujukan, look for the elixir cauldron that Huang Chuiying uses. It is an immortal weapon. This is what she wants very much. The quality of the elixir has a lot to do with the elixir cauldron. Huang Chuiying's alchemy cauldron is called Yaoang Ding. Her master spent a lot of money to buy it for her. It just so happened that her magical alchemy cauldron was no longer enough for refining high-level elixirs. Okay, I'll find it for you. Mujukan immediately began to sort and put away the jade box that took up space. It wouldn't be too late to open it later when planting. Yuan was also cleaning up. Sure enough, it was the collection of a Mahayana monk. Nothing was ordinary. Even her robes were of the spiritual treasure level. She kept them. To be honest, even the spiritual stones here can't be exchanged for them. Huh, is this a defensive jade bracelet? Yuan picked up an emerald green bracelet, but she recognized it at a glance because of the array patterns on it. Yuan looked at it and immediately put it on her wrist. She input some spiritual energy, and sure enough, a halo of light appeared on the bracelet and enveloped her. Well, I can give this to Xiaoliu, Yuan thought silently in her heart. She took off the jade bracelet and put it on. This is it. She opened another jade box and took out a broken jade gourd inside. She wondered why the broken jade gourd was collected so carefully. She took a look with her consciousness. I see. Why is Huang Chuiying so precious to a piece of shit? It turned out to be a space treasure, with an area of 10 acres of land, and high-level elixirs were grown on it. However, the elixirs were withered and yellow, which showed that they lacked spiritual energy. She was still thinking, Huang Chuiying spent half of the year refining elixirs instead of refining them every day, so where did her elixir come from? This broken gourd can be reborn with spiritual stones, so it should be able to provide for her. Fortunately, the jade gourd was broken and downgraded, otherwise Huang Chuiying's storage ring would not be able to be put away. Yuan put the jade gourd aside and planted it for a while. "Waner, do you think it's this?" At this time, Mujukan was holding a palm-sized black four-cauldron furnace cauldron in his hand. "Yeah, this is it." Yuan happily took the Medicine King cauldron and looked at it carefully. It was the Dan cauldron in her memory. The four ears on the side of the tripod are the statues of the four mythical beasts, and the mouths of the four mythical beasts are the passages for the elimination of impurities. With this, the quality of her elixirs can be improved to a higher level in the future. Finding the alchemy tripod, the two of them quickly sorted out the other things and put them away. Then the two planted the elixir seeds, removed the elixir from the jade gourd, and planted everything that could be planted in the jade boxes. "Waner, let's go into seclusion here and then go out." After the two of them had settled all the locking matters, Mujukan said. He wanted to understand some of the formations and the golden elixir stage found in the jade tube. Spells, as well as refining your own natal magic weapon. The natal magic weapon is different from ordinary magic weapons. The natal magic weapon is connected and closely related to the monk's natal soul, and can be placed in the dantian for cultivation. The magic power is much more powerful than ordinary magic weapons, because it is connected with the life, and can be used according to the heart. Even if others get it, they can't use it. "Oh, by the way Waner, what kind of magic weapon have you planned to refine? Tell me so you can be prepared." Mujukan remembered that Waner also wanted a magic weapon. "Yeah, I ignored it if you didn't tell me, thank you for reminding me," Yuan said, standing on tiptoes and smacking him in the face. Mujukan touched the place where her soft lips had kissed him, nodded, and reached out to hold her in his arms. "I haven't thought about it yet. Why don't you think about it together and let me know when you think about it?" Yuan gave him another naughty slap. "Okay." Mujukan rubbed her hair and stayed with her for a while before going to retreat. Yuan pouted at his back and began to retreat. This time she was going to finish practicing the spells in the golden elixir stage. There are also soul thorns. In the past, she could cast 10 of them instantly in the foundation stage, but now in the golden elixir stage, she can't cast 20. Half-year later, the two of them left the space, and their swords flew towards the outside of the mountains. "Huh, why are there so many people wandering around in the mountains?" The two of them slowed down and stopped in mid-air. "Mujukan, listen to what they say." Yuan nodded and released his spiritual consciousness. "I'm telling you, boss, we've been here for almost half a year and haven't found anything, and everyone is still seriously injured," a man in his 30s complained. "Yes, boss, let's go back." "If I want to come back to you, do you really think I can't live without you?" a big man with a beard cursed. The people behind him looked at each other and followed him silently. "We've all come forward, and you're still holding back." Seeing them, the big man with the beard followed him, and his tone became much gentler now. Yuan and Yuan looked at each other in mid-air, and she said, "What are they looking for? It couldn't be that I survived the thunder tribulation half a year ago. Do they think there is some treasure?" "It's possible," Mujukan nodded. "There were no monks here, and no one knew that this was a monk who was going through the thunder tribulation." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 309. Chapter 309, Return to the Valley. Yuan, then let's go. Good. There is no treasure, it's better to die. The powerful mysterious beasts inside are old and young, and their cultivation is not strong. Mujukan and Waner flew out of the mountains without even looking at them. It was quiet in the valley. The two people jumped down from the flying swords and put away the flying swords. Aunt Gao, Yuan came to Gao's door, knocked on the door and called out, but there was no response. Out. Yuan used her spiritual consciousness to check in the valley, but there was no sign of Aunt Gao. Is there no one there? Mujukan also came over. No, Yuan shook her head. Are you practicing in seclusion at home? Didn't look, although they have spiritual consciousness and can look at it at will, they don't like to go to anyone's cave and look at it at will. It is very impolite. Let's take a look first. Yuan nodded, she released her consciousness and saw the cave. She frowned, wondering why Gao was still sleeping. She used her spiritual power to slap the door with her palm, and the door fell down. The two of them rushed into the room and rushed to Gao's bed. Yuan's consciousness swept away and found that Gao had no breath. Aunt Gao, Yuan called out sadly. The person on the bed was lying peacefully and had been dead for a long time. Mujukan stepped forward and checked carefully. He found that it was indeed a natural death. He patted Yuan's back and said, "Don't be sad, Waner." Aunt Gao passed away peacefully. You see, she was well dressed. She had prepared this for a long time. Okay. Let's put her to rest. Good. Yuan wiped her tears and took a deep breath. She never thought that she would be separated from Aunt Gao forever after she had been out for only a few days. Although he is not her relative, he is like a relative. They buried Gao in the valley so that she could see the valley and them every day. At this time, a drizzle began to fall in the sky, which seemed to be telling something. Yuan stood in front of Gao's tomb, looking at the tombstone. There was no name on it, only the surname. Yuan sighed. In this feudal dynasty, the Gao family was not the only one with such a woman. Thousands of women have low social status, and few are as lucky as Gao in old age. She hopes that Gao will be reborn into a better family in his next life, at least there won't be anyone who throws a brazier when he dies. Yuan spent a month in depression. On this day, the two of them got up and planned to go for a walk outside. They packed up their things and came to Xiaoqingshan. They gave some cultivation resources, marrow cleansing pills and other elixirs to Mu Yunshan's family of 3 and left. Waner, shall we go into the city? That day they passed a city and Mujukan asked her. Let's go and have a look. Although these cities are similar, they cannot always be so lonely and out of touch with life. No matter what you cultivate, the purpose is to live a good life. Okay, Mujukan led her to the city gate and entered the city gracefully. They have practiced profound power, and their level is not low. The city guard looked at them and did not dare to express their anger, so they respectfully allowed them to enter the city. The two wandered around the city for a while, then found an inn to stay. The next day they left the city and flew to a town called Pomegranate. Last night, they heard someone in the inn saying that something strange happened in Pomegranate town. Someone in the town died inexplicably. He had no pain, no illness, and no injuries. He died in bed after a good sleep. They said it was a ghost at work. After hearing this, the two of them estimated that there really was a ghost. To be precise, it was a ghost. They have seen Huang Chuying's soul, and they are monks themselves, so they naturally know what it is. But they still have to see for themselves what it is. Perhaps it can also eliminate harm for the people. The two men were flying with swords in the sky, and no one could see them below. Soon they reached the sky above Pomegranate town. The two stopped and looked towards the town with their spiritual consciousness. During the day, people were coming and going in the town, just like usual. Mujukan, have you felt any yin energy? It's gloomy, but far worse than Huang Chuying's place. It's probably the soul of a young monk. We'll wait here until night to watch it, and we'll know after we watch it. Okay then, if they go down and the ghost detects the monk and runs away, they might as well stay here and wait. The two of them entered the space. Holding a sword in the air for a long time also consumes spiritual energy. It was night, and it was just getting dark. The two of them came out of the space and took a look. Sure enough, there was no pedestrian in the town. The two of them just waited. An hour later, a cloud of yin energy really came from the east side of the town. Ding Ching took a look and saw that there was indeed a black dumpling in the cloud of yin energy. Waner, let's go. Mujukan flew down first with his sword, and Yuan followed immediately. At the east entrance of the town, the black ball was just about to get into a house. The lights in that family's house had not yet been turned off. This ghost was so brave. Phew, Mujukan immediately sent out a soul thorn to force it to stop. Sure enough, with a sound of "ah," Black Tuanza screamed and flew straight out of the town. Whoosh, two figures blocked it one after another. Before it could run to the left or right, Mujukan's trap had already been activated, and then he released his own pressure. "Senior, please spare my life," a man's voice rang out from the black dumpling. "Oh, it's not bad. You can even speak now," Yuan said sarcastically. If the ghost is still ignorant during the Qi training period, this ghost either devoured the human soul to strengthen itself, or it was already a building when it died. Above the base period. The ghost said nothing, just floating between the two of them. "Don't beg for mercy anymore. Forgive you, you know that monks are not allowed to kill mortals, so why do you still do it?" Mujukan said in a deep voice. Junior also has no choice." Then the ghost let out a sigh. Mujukan winked at Yuan, and Yuan understood instantly, waving his hand and leading the formation into the space. Then Yuan left the space again and flew towards the mountain to the east of the town, finding a hidden place before entering the space again. In the space, the two people sat quietly in front of the ghost. "Of course we are still in the trap. Tell me where you come from." "We don't want to know what you have to do." Yuan spoke first. If she didn't speak, the ghost wouldn't take the initiative to say anything. "Ghost, good. Senior, I came from the world of cultivating immortals on the other side of Kinjao continent. Because I was hunted down, I had no choice but to break into the 9 nether forbidden land. In the end, I did not escape my fate, and only this remnant soul was left. There are no monks here. Let alone a person without spiritual roots. I did this in order to keep my remaining soul alive." The two of them were shocked when they heard this. Is there still a world of immortality here? Just on the other side? They really thought there were no monks on this continent. Yuan frowned and asked, "What is the situation in the 9 forbidden areas? Is it dangerous? And what kind of cultivation did you have during your lifetime?" From what he said, his cultivation level was not low before. So why is the 9 forbidden areas not dangerous? Isn't it that everyone can come and go freely? End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 310. Chapter 310 9 Forbidden Places. Well, the 9 nether forbidden land is a dangerous place that separates the mortal world and the world of immortality. It prohibits communication between the two sides. Not only is it dangerous, it is also forbidden to fly. There are mountains and rivers inside, like another world. There are 5th level monsters and monster plants inside. There are so many poisonous beasts, but they can't get out of the forbidden area, and they can't cause thunder disaster. They all keep their original shape, but they are extremely ferocious. There are still so many 5th level ones. Yuan and Mujukan have experienced the beast tide on Xianling continent. They have not yet dispatched 4th level and 5th level ones, and all human monks have been completely defeated. They both swallowed involuntarily. "What is the level of cultivation of the monks in the immortal world over there?" Yuan asked again after a long while. People are always curious, so they couldn't help but want to ask. "Ghost, there are as many golden pills as dogs." Yuan, is the nascent soul walking all over the ground? Ghost, that's not the case. Oh, if the nascent soul were really everywhere, what a prosperous age for cultivating immortals. Yuan really didn't ask the ghost about himself. Once he knew what he needed to know, he let him stay in the formation for the time being. The two of them rested in the space until dawn the next day before they came out. Waner, do you want to go to the 9 Forbidden Lands? Mujukan saw that Yuan was in deep thought all day, so he asked her. Ah, I want to go, I really want to go. Yuan wanted to get some 5th level demon pills for the little snake. The guy had not recovered after being in seclusion in the mountains for so long. Naturally, he lacked spiritual power to allow him to break through and recover. As for the immortal cultivation world opposite, she had never thought about going there. They were very good here. There are no disturbing wars, and there are no annoying monsters. Planting fields, walking around, and making up for the regrets left in the previous life here. The only regret is that my parents are not around. What are Waner thinking about? Your parents, Mujukan saw her eyes become wandering and melancholy. Yuan nodded and sighed, let's go. We don't know the way there, but we will definitely get there if we keep going east. Mujukan patted her back and held her hand tightly. Silence was better than sound at this time. Nothing he said was appropriate. Waner can't go back to the world she once had, and her parents can't come either. Talking too much about it makes her feel even sadder. Yuan felt his strong big hand wrap around her small hand, which was warm and reassuring. She smiled at him, and then the two of them flew towards the east hand in hand with flying swords. Looking from a distance, the two of them looked like a couple of gods and goddesses with fluttering clothes. In front of the 9 Nether Forbidden Land, the two of them descended with their swords. As the ghost said, there was still 100 feet of distance, and the sky here was banned, so they had no choice but to abandon flying and walk on foot. The two of them jumped off the flying sword and stood outside the 9 Nether Forbidden Land with the flying sword in hand, looking at the 9 Nether Forbidden Land. The endless mountains, and rivers can be seen from south to north. The lush forests in the mountains are full of aura and are a holy land for cultivation. There are many local people outside who go into the mountains to hunt and collect herbs. Yuan looked in with her spiritual consciousness and saw that there were no powerful monsters outside. As long as these people did not go deep, there was no danger. Let's go in too. Yuan also saw that there were a lot of rare elixirs inside, mainly because those who picked them didn't know the elixirs, and many of them survived. For example, the main ingredient for refining the 3rd level healing elixir is pulviarum. People who don't know it think it is dead. In fact, it is not the case. The branches and leaves that look dead are actually very full of life. The two of them entered the mountain and happened to meet a man digging herbs. Yuan glanced into his back, and her eyes lit up. Isn't that Rami leaf flower one of the main ingredients for refining the Yingying Dan? In fact, she was just used to looking at the herbs, but she didn't expect that there was such a precious elixir. Hey, little brother, do you use the herbs yourself or sell them? Yuan immediately stopped her and asked. The young man took a step back and looked at the two of them warily. Seeing that he was scared, Yuan waved her hands, then smiled at him. Trying to be gentle, she said, we don't mean any harm. We just saw that there is a herb we want in your back. If you want to buy it, we will buy it for you. The younger brother looked at Mujukan timidly. Mujukan rarely calmed down the cold expression on his face. When the younger brother saw that they really had no intention of robbing him, he nodded and carefully put down the bag on his back. You can take whatever this lady wants. These are not worth much money. Yuan walked over, picked up the Rami leaf flower from her back and said, this is the one, I want it. Handlessly put a piece of silver in his back, and the two of them entered the forest in an instant. The younger brother looked at the money in his pocket and scratched his head, is this Huomeza so valuable? He looked around and saw that no one was there. He put away the money and ran down the mountain with the money on his back. Yuan has already planted the rami leaves and flowers in the red soil. This is a good place, we are in the right place. Yuan smiled with crooked eyebrows. Mujukan petted her head lovingly and became happy along with her. They were collecting elixirs while walking. There were so many elixirs on the outside, so there must be more inside, which made Yuan extremely excited. But Mujukan was exhausted. She asked him to dig it out, and he had to be responsible for dealing with monsters when they encountered them. But he likes this and never gets tired of it. Waner, we have to be careful, there is already the smell of a high-priced monster. Mujukan sent a message to Yuan, and he became particularly cautious. Yeah, I understand. Yuan had already discovered in her consciousness that there were so many high-level monsters. She was really curious about how the ghost in the space escaped from being scattered. Roar, suddenly a roar of a demonic beast sounded, followed by the sound of a demonic beast running. Be careful, they are coming for us, Yuan said. She immediately used her flying sword to prepare for a back-to-back battle with Mujukan. Ho ho! A giant colorful tiger rushed towards them with its mouth open. Level 5, the two of them took a breath of air. Humans, you are so courageous that you dare to invade my king's territory. Privately, the voice of the 5th level giant tiger reached the ears of the two of them. At the same time, a man jumped up and pounced on them with his mouth wide open. The two of them also felt a powerful spiritual force rushing towards them, giving them the feeling of being overwhelmed by a mountain. Movement became extremely difficult, and it was difficult to even lift the flying sword to defend against the enemy. It turned out that they were really powerless to resist when faced with the 5th level monster. Just when the giant tiger was about to bite them, suddenly, dozens of soul thorns passed through its mouth and reached its sea of consciousness. If you can't use spiritual power, can't you use soul thorn? Bang, there was a loud noise, the giant tiger's head blossomed, brains and flesh flew into the sky, and fell again like rain. As soon as the two of them stepped forward, they were 1 foot away, dodging the falling red and white pieces of meat. End of this chapter.